Hello and welcome to today's video. I don't do a lot of reviews of vintage pens, and when I do show vintage pens, I don't do reviews necessarily of them, simply because they are harder to find and the quality you get them in, it's inconsistent, all that kind of stuff. But occasionally I do like to talk about and show the vintage pens that I have in my collection that I love, and today is one of those videos. So today I have this pen. This is a Conway Stewart 75. Now, I really enjoy a lot about this pen. Firstly, the fact that it is black with like this chrome nickel sort of trim, and also the fact that it's a really comfortable everyday writer. I'm not going to talk about parts and features necessarily, but let's have a quick look at it. So it's a screw cap with a slightly sort of smaller section there. It's got a 14 karat gold nib there. It is a lever filler, as you can see. Now, obviously, when you buy vintage pens, you're not always going to get great quality. I bought this from a retailer that I really trust, and they had done a restoration of the sack and all those kinds of things. Now, I can polish this pen up and I can clean up the chrome and all those kinds of things, and I may do that, but I kind of like that the pen is sort of showing a little bit of its age while still performing absolutely flawlessly. So the sack was replaced, the filling mechanism is completely now intact. It's going really, really well. You can see here on the barrel, there's a little engraving of Conway Stewart 75 made in England. It's a really lovely pen. Now, let's have a look at this little information page I've sort of jotted down here. As I said, it's a Conway Stewart 75. So this particular model was made around the 1950s in England. So it places it in that sort of post-war era. It came in many different colors and finishes, and this is the classic black with the nickel or chrome trim, which, as I said, absolutely beautiful. It's a smaller pen, so if we look at it alongside a sort of a more standard modern pen, like a Lamy Safari here, you'll see it is on the smaller side, and particularly like the width of the section really does taper down. It is definitely smaller, but that was a very, very much the trend for vintage pens, for pens at this period. You know, they weren't big pens. Oversized pens is really, with the exception of a few, oversized pens are really a product of modern times. But it's a very comfortable pen. It has, as I said, a 14 karat soft nib, not a flex nib, but it is on the softer side. And this is their number 3 nib. So this is the proper nib for this pen. It's not one that's sort of been replaced or anything like that. As I said, it is a lever filler, and this one has been restored. So there's always something you have to think about when you get a vintage pen, particularly one that has this kind of filling system, is that the mechanism needs to work, so that you need to replace the latex sac quite often. But yes, so what you do is I won't do it now because it's filled with ink, but you lift up this lever, and when you lift that lever, it depresses a bar on the inside which squeezes the sac, and then as you release that lever, the sac opens up, and that vacuum sucks ink up into the pen, obviously when the nib is down in a bottle of ink. So it's a classic old filling system, and it's a nice sort of touch on a lot of these sort of vintage pens. And then I've got a little bit of sort of information here. This was one of the most popular models from Conway Stewart after the war. So we're talking, as I said, we're talking 1950s here. And it often wasn't as expensive as other models, which made it incredibly popular. As I said, because it's a chrome trim as opposed to gold-plated trim, that made it less expensive. But, you know, it was a good size pen. It had a good size nib, same filling system, same build quality, and all of that as the more expensive models from Conway Stewart. And so it became incredibly popular. And we still see a lot of these around today. As I said, I bought this from a reputable seller that I trust, but you can get them from a lot of places. So as I said, it is a slightly smaller pen, 126 millimeters when it's capped, it's 114 when it's uncapped, and it's 157 when it's posted. It posts okay. I do tend to find, even though it's smaller, that I write with this unposted, and I just, you know, it is what it is, and it's still very comfortable, even in a sort of a fairly sort of standard average size hand. The grip around the middle of the grip is about 9 millimeters, and around the barrel of the pen is about 11 millimeters. So slim, small pen, but very standard, even perhaps slightly on the bigger side for a lot of vintage pens of this period. I should also say the pen weighs about 16 grams, of which about 9 is in the barrel, so it's not a heavy pen either. I wanted to do a very quick writing sample before we close out this video. So at the bottom of this is Rhodia paper. Just thought I would do a quick writing sample. So we have the Conway Stewart, and so this is the 75, and the ink in this one, I should say, it's got a 14 karat gold nib, and it is soft-ish, so you can get a little bit of line variation out of there without too much effort. Not as flexy as, say, some of those like good old Waterman nibs and things like that, but it's putting down a good amount of ink on the page, and it writes very, very smoothly. The ink I am writing with is an Ackerman ink. It is their number 16 Oran Yaboven. So a lot of these softer nibs, they're not the best for left-handed writers, so you do have to sort of take that into account if you are a lefty, because they are slightly soft, so they can sort of grip into the page a little bit with that sort of pushing across the pace action that we often have to deal with. But very nice, very simple, very elegant pen, and an everyday kind of writer in a vintage style. Well, not vintage style, it is vintage. So I use this, I carry this, I love it. It's not a super expensive pen to buy restored, so you can sort of use it without having to worry too much, and I certainly love this one. So this was the Conway Stewart 75. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this little bit of trivia about one of the random pens from my collection interesting and useful. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. If you've got a way you'd like to support the channel by sponsoring a review or providing an item for a review, maybe you've got some old sort of vintage fountain pens that you don't use anymore, or that you'd like to see shown on here, please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. I'm sure we can arrange something. So yes, thank you for watching, and enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.